This time I'm bringing you a deck profile plus a couple of replays of my Litmus Doom Swordsman deck profile. This deck is a little bit different from what you've seen before. It mainly revolves around continuous traps and using control to take control of your opponent's board and make sure that they can't play the game, essentially. In the deck we run 3 Incantation Talismandra, 3 Incantation Candle, 3 of the Ritual Litmus Doom Swordsman, 1 Incantation Chalice Slime, 3 Preparation of Rites, 3 Trade-In, 3 Litmus Doom Ritual, 2 Incantation Celebration, and then we move on to the traps. 3 Evenly Matched, 3 Reckless Greed, 3 Torrential Tribute, 3 There Can Be Only One, 3 Fiendish Chain, 3 Anti-Spell, and 1 Skill Drain. The way the deck works is you sit there, you play all your continuous spells, and you sit on a Litmus Doom Swordsman, which is unaffected by trap effects and cannot be destroyed by battle. And while there's a trap on the field, he gains 3000 attack and defense. If this ritual summon card in its own control is destroyed by opponent's card, whether by battle or by card effect, you can target a trap in either graveyard, set it to your spell and trap zone. The whole point of the deck is to sit on this one card and do a lot of damage and make sure that your opponent either can't build a board or can't attack you while you're attempting to establish your board. This deck's a lot of fun. I highly recommend anybody who is into something a bit different or a bit more rogue to go for this type of deck. But what I'll do is I'll show you a couple of replays now next and show you how the deck wins. So first things first, we'll go with the first replay against Golem de Lava. This deck was a bit more control aspect, that was using the Dream Mirror plus a lair engine, which I've never seen before. But what I end up doing is going to Candle and Talismandra. I search out Litmus Doom Swordsman, use the ritual, go into it, and then set Skill Drain and Anti-Spell Fragrance. This is probably one of the best openings you can get for a deck, because basically it means the only thing your opponent can really do on their first turn is play, set everything, and pass. So what I end up doing is I start playing pressure to my opponent, start taking out some of their creatures, and attempt to, while I can, force my opponent into a corner. This deck's a lot of fun. It does have a lot of control aspect, and it's very easy for beginners to pick up and play. I highly recommend, though, if you can, to try and get the pre-preps through trade or anything like that, because really the expensive cards in this deck are things like the Evenly Matched and all of the continuous traps. As you see, my opponent goes into Blackluster Soldier Envoy at the beginning, and he must not have read the card what Litmus Doom Swordsman did, because it can't be destroyed by battle, and he ends up just getting rid of that. He uses Instant Fusion as well, which is a weird one to go on the 1000 Dice Restrict, and can't do anything with it because obviously the effects can't be used because of Skill Drain. The way the ruling works with Skill Drain and Litmus Doom Swordsman, he's unaffected by trap effects. So if you have your Litmus Doom Swordsman in the field and then you play Skill Drain, Litmus Doom Swordsman's effects can still go off because he's unaffected. But as you can see, one of the main problems with the deck is it's hard to sort of get into all of your combo pieces. But the ritual spell does allow you to shuffle the ritual monster and the ritual spell back in the deck and draw a card. So you really can like keep resourcing your resources and doing that. I have Fiendish Chain and there can only be one set, as therefore essentially locking down my opponent's board altogether. He does take control of my Litmus Doom Swordsman, swings at me for 3k, and then obviously at the end turn, I get the Litmus Doom Swordsman back. Essentially, my opponent has been completely locked out of doing anything in his board state. I obviously summon a couple more incantations just to get rid of some hand space and keep applying more pressure with my one creature. This is essentially a protect the tower strategy. You're protecting your Litmus Doom Swordsman while forcing your opponent to make essentially hasty decisions and maybe not able to make the combos that they fully want to play. Against the meta, I could see cards like Sky Striker, Thunder Dragon, and stuff like that having a bit of relevance, especially if they get to go first before Litmus Doom Swordsman gets to play. But as you can see, Dream Mirror struggled to do any sort of board presence. They were able to do 3000 points of damage to me, but that was about it. Anyway, moving on to the second replay. This is to sort of show a bit more about what the deck can properly do, especially when they don't open any of the creatures in their hand. I go up against Gravekeeper, which is a deck that loves to deal with the graveyard, and something that my Litmus Doom Swordsman obviously doesn't want to do is deal with the graveyard. So I activate There Can Be Only One, forcing my opponent essentially to go into your fusion, or that's it. I Torrential Tribute as a fusion summon essentially for the deck, and I decide to do Reckless Greed, try and get more into my combo pieces. I managed to get into the combo pieces I need to get my Litmus Doom Swordsman, ritual summon in the, or attempt to anyway, but he Solemn Judgments me. This is where I apply a lot of pressure to him, because at this point now he's down to 1000 life points, so if he has instant fusion, he can't play it, and therefore he can only really go on to one creature. At this stage, he decides to go into Mystic Mine, something I wasn't expecting, and essentially locks me out. At this point, I wasn't realizing that he had the Mystic Mine. I thought he'd still had the Necro Valley, and I do something stupid. I play a creature when I shouldn't have. At this point, he top decks the Super Polymerization, goes into Starving Venom, and summons his creature. And because of Mystic Mine, obviously, he can't attack. So what I end up doing is I do my draw, end up going into Candle, and I essentially am able to search out the last few Kiwi pieces, and my opponent scoops at this stage, knowing that I'm going to attack his creature. At this stage then, this is just to showcase essentially what the deck can do. As I said, this deck will not be competitive in any way whatsoever. This is just something for beginners who maybe are wanting to try and get in the game, maybe understand maybe basic mechanics and try and build some form of deck that maybe could hold its own against maybe some competitive decks. I do highly recommend looking into stuff like Litmus, Swordsman and other ritual decks for beginners. It's mainly because it's a mechanic that existed a long time ago in the early stages of Yu-Gi-Oh! And it's something new for people again. It gets them into using spell cards, trap cards, monster cards, and essentially build a board and sit on their board while forcing their opponent to play at a bit more of a slower speed and play at the speed that the player who runs the ritual deck will enjoy. But like I says, guys, if there's any side deck options, what we'll do is now we'll go into your side deck. So what I would normally say is any more trap cards or anything like that is obviously a boon. So if you want to run things like Rivalry of the Warlords, Goes and Match, things like that. If you want, I would also recommend things to protect your monster. So things like the Mirror Forces. So ones like the Standard Mirror Force, Storming Mirror Force, and Drowning Mirror Force, just to make sure that you can keep establishing your board and your prospectuses in the going forward. Other cards I would say would be things like Imperial Order, to essentially prevent any form of spell and spell cards being done. Also things like Imperial Iron Wall, so your opponent can't banish things, because this deck in its own right doesn't do a lot of banishing. So what you can do is keep recycling your resources, play Imperial Iron Wars, and this shuts down decks like Thunder Dragon, things like the Dream Mirrors as well, or any deck that revolves around getting cards into the grave or banishing them. So zombies as well don't like this type of card. The deck has a lot of potential to grow, expand. There's a lot of development potential, and I actually would say to people, if they were to pick up something at the start, pick up stuff like this, because you can really build it on a budget. The only real expensive cards in this deck are essentially the trap lineup. So things like the anti-spells, the skill drains, the evenly matched, there can be only ones, because a lot of these cards are currently seeing play in the meta. When things like True Draco, Unchained, Evil Eye, decks like that essentially love running their trap cards. Even Altergeists are running cards like this as well to sort of slow down and handle their opponent. But that's it, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this deck profile and seen a couple of replays of how the deck operates, and I hope to see you next time in the next video.